शारदाम्बोजवदना वदनाम्बुजे सर्वदा सर्वदास्माकं सन्निधिः सन्निधिं क्रियात्. Namaskaram. Welcome to an episode of Spiritual Spiralapam conducted by Aham Brahmaasmi, which is an affiliated unit of Sringeri Sharada Peetham. Today, it is our immense privilege and good fortune to have with us the gracious presence of Guru Vidwan Dr. V Vishwanath Garu. We welcome you, Guru Garu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guru Garu, we are truly grateful for this opportunity to take guidance from you on aspects of Dharma and spiritual living. So with the blessings of Ubhaya Jagat Gurus, Sri Sharada Chandramaulishwara Swami, and with your permission, may we start with this interview?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Please.
Guru Garu, namaste. I have a question. Why do students often feel anxious and directionless even after they've achieved the goals that they've worked really hard for?
The main reason why the anxiousness usually creeps in is mainly because of the lack of contentment. There is no limit for the desires, and this is a very fundamental thing. No matter how much ever desires we have and we may fulfill that, it is never going to be sufficient. There will always be room for one more. So there is this famous proverb in Sanskrita where they say that Nagnis tripyati kashthanam. So if we try to make the fire content by providing it more and more wooden logs, it makes no sense, because the fire is never going to get content with any number of wooden logs. So desires for us are like wooden logs, and because we do not have that kind of contentment, more and more desires will always be there, and that creates this void of contentment. And that void of contentment, that drive towards having more and more success and more contentment, it's at the end of the day everybody seeks, whether it is a student or any adult for that matter of fact. All we seek is that contentment. Once you feel content, you don't want to get into it, is the original idea, is the true idea. However, the contentment that we are seeking is not going to come with any of the laukika padarthas, any of the external materials, whether it is success, friendships. See, take for example Instagram. You create a profile on Instagram and you are starting a new page. Take for example a food blog kind of a page. How many likes or how many subscribers is the threshold, is the limit? There is no limit for that. I mean, you have 1 million followers, you would be aiming for 2 million followers. You would be aiming to get more partnerships and all those kind of things. So we have to identify where exactly the problem lies. The problem, the seed of this anxiousness is deriving from the lack of contentment. We are not able to find that contentment within us. Even after achieving, as you mentioned, they might have achieved all their goals that they have set, but they have mistaken that the goals that we need are set up in the external world. That I want to be successful, I want to have a degree, I want to have a rank, I need to have a job. So these are some of the external desires that we have set in. But the problem is that we don't have any internalized goal at all. What is the purpose of my life? How do I attain that contentment in my life? Where do I find that contentment? If we provide this kind of fundamental ideas, and if we start asking these questions to ourselves, especially during our studenthood, I think most of the anxiety will go away. The anxiety exists because we are always constantly comparing ourselves with the external sources. Once we stop doing that, and once we internalize it, then the anxiety will go away.
Thank you. That is a very good answer.
Guru Garu, I have a question from your explanation. Why do achievements like scoring good marks, cracking that interview, or getting into that desired job feel so important for our self-worth, even when we know that they are not going to define us completely?
True. See, it's like many a times if I asked you what is the most important ingredient to prepare rasam, okay, some may say the rasam powder, some may say water, some may say many other ingredients. We have forgotten, there is a lack of understanding in terms of what is primary for us and what is secondary for us. We have replaced the primary with secondary, and secondary has become primary for us. So if we change that, then automatically all the problems will vanish, all the problems will go away. So now we have ourselves set up all these kind of things, thinking that scoring good marks, getting a good job, and having all the luxuries and comforts is the standard, is what we ourselves have set in. We need to ask this question that humanity has evolved over thousands of years. Our rishis had lived a very content and very happy life. How did they live? They did not have to go through any of this university education, ranking, nothing. And yet they remained happy. Not just the rishis, even to this day we see so many Mahapurushas, so many great people, the likes of Ubhay Jagadgurus of Sringeri Sharada Peetham. They are always content, they are always happy. What is it that makes their life more content, more happy, and what is it that is lacking in our life? So there is nothing wrong in having goals. The problem arises when we consider that this is the goal. So the problem is with the gradation that we have. As I said, it is okay to score good marks. It is okay to get a good job and everything. But to consider that as the ultimate purpose of our life, that's where we go wrong. We should consider them, or we should have them thinking that this is also equally important for our survival and for our improvement. But this is not the thing that is going to define us. What is going to define us is how we live our life, how detached I am in my living, and how much am I involved in activities but not getting any involvement or any sort of attachment towards the outcome. That clarity will ensure that we are not bothered by these secondary goals. These are all secondary goals. I'm not demeaning them by calling them as secondary goals, but you don't put the secondary things on the highest pedestal. You put primary things on the highest pedestal. So if we asked, see, you might like your friends a lot, okay, but you are not going to replace your family with your friends. You're not going to replace your father and mother with your friends. Isn't it? So that's just like that, if we know what is primary in our life and what is secondary, the clarity will ensure that we are not bothered.
Thank you, Guruvar. That was a lucid explanation. I have a follow-up question with that. So, assuming that I have failed at something very important in life or something that matters to me the most, so how can I prevent myself from believing that I'm a failure, or prevent that failure becoming a part of my identity?
Right. See, how do we judge something as failure or something as success? Both this idea of success and failure is subjective. We are having a parameter, we have set a certain parameter, and based upon that parameter, we are determining that this is success and this is failure. For someone who is, take for example the athletics, a 100-meter race, or take for example a marathon. A person who is starting today to train for marathon, if he runs 1 kilometer, would it be considered as failure or would it be considered as success? It will not be considered as failure because it is not subjective. It is related to him. Whereas if we have a common parameter and think that I have failed or I have succeeded, both success and failure is actually coming from a parameters that we ourselves have set up. So that is the first thing that we need to remove. If at all we have to set a parameter, let us say that parameters are necessary. We will set up a parameter. What should be the criteria for setting up a parameter? On what grounds should we set up a parameter? So if we are always setting the parameter depending up, we have not thought about this, and we are setting up based on the inputs that we have got from the external world. But what about the internal bliss? What about the antaranga anubhava, or that saukhya, or that ananda that we have? If we place that as the parameter, then there is nothing that will allow us to get bothered or be worried about the success and failure, or so-called success and failure related to the external world.
Thank you, Guruvar. That was truly insightful. So, Guru Garu, nowadays, as you know, social media has become a part and parcel of everybody's life.
Yeah.
And nowadays, especially, social media has been encouraging and influencing people to have their own personal brand.
Correct.
So, how can one present themselves to the world without losing themselves? That is, without losing their identity in this due process.
Perfect. The best example for that is Rama. Okay. So long before this social media hype as we know existed, Rama lived a social life. Basically, he was a, let us say, in today's perspective, if I have to say, he was a public servant. He held a public office. So, what do we learn from Rama's life is because of the fact that he held a public office, the scrutiny into his own life was more. And there is no such thing called as a personal life for those who are into public service. Your life will be an open book to the entire public. So, it is not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody can conduct themselves in that manner. However, even though it was not necessary for us to put ourselves out in the world, we anyway have done that. See, we cannot be having this dilemmatic approach or the dual approach in terms of social media, where I want people to like my posts, but I also do not want them to criticize me. That is not going to work. I mean, if you are going to put yourself on the social pedestal, if you are subjecting yourself to the social media, you should be open to both constructive as well as destructive criticism. That's point number one. And how do we ensure that we remain calm at all these places? And if social media has become a part of it, in a way, I know this can be a little quirky to hear, but in a way, it is a very good thing that we have social media today. Because long ago, we used to hear this phrase, I mean, 30, 40 years ago, we used to hear this phrase, that char log kya kahenge. This was a common phrase that was used across India. I mean, if you conduct yourself in a wrong way, there are always people who will be looking at you, and what will they think about? Now that 4 log or the char log has become 40 people or 400 people or 4,000 followers now. So each and every move of mine is going to be scrutinized. Isn't that sufficient enough for us to put on the toes in order to perform our dharma? Now, the Samskrita Subhashita gives us an idea that grihita iva kesheshu mrityuna dharma macharet. How should one perform their dharma? How should one go about their swadharma? So it says almost as if the death is holding you by your hair. Imagine that the death has put a knife to your neck and holding your hair. You are always under constant threat, constant scrutiny by death. It is going to judge you. So you will never miss the point. So you are not going to step away from your dharma. So that is the construct that is the idea that was given in the Subhashita. Consider social media as the death. That is mrityu, and it has held us in our hair. And because it is social media who will judge each and every move, it is wonderful. It is a blessing in disguise, because it will allow us to do things correctly, follow our dharma to the core. Because you cannot be a dambhika in the sense, a fake one. Yeah. Only for the sake of social media, I will be like somebody, and once that camera is off, I will act something else. You cannot be like that. So because of this social media scrutiny, because of the hundreds and thousands of cameras always lurking into our personal life, I think it gives us that privilege to be more and more disciplined and not let ourselves down. If you think from a positive perspective, social media can do a wondrous job for us.
That was really an optimistic approach, Guru Garu, and thank you for such beautiful elucidation.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask, many students are actually doing well in their exams, but if given a real life situation, they can't decide on the right choice. So why is there such a gap between knowledge and wisdom?
That's good. That's very good. See, because of the lack of understanding of swadharma, because I don't know what are my duties and responsibilities. I don't know what is my social responsibility, because none of those things are ever taught to us. We are only taught about the factual things, the trivial things, because we are all aware of the trivial things, and we turn a blind eye towards what is my responsibility towards family. We live in a place where you talked about wisdom, right? Knowledge and wisdom. There are many occasions, many instances that happen within the family where we would have seen our mother tirelessly working, without any rest, working day in and day out, and it never crosses our mind to go and help her. I'm just giving a simple example. That is common sense, right? But the same people, when they get married, this is the hypocrisy, you see. The same people, when they get married, and if their spouse is working in the kitchen, they are very happy to go and help. What made the difference? It's just that we lack that vision. There we think that we are equals, and therefore we have to contribute equally to the family. But here also it is family, no? Just the role is different. If the mother is working, isn't it our responsibility to contribute as well? This lack of clarity about what is my responsibility in family and in society, towards my country, towards my dharma, collectively what am I supposed to do on a regular basis? This is something that fundamentally we need to ask ourselves, because none of the textbooks, none of the university syllabus will ever prescribe all these things. But we take a look at people, how great people have always conducted themselves. Take an example of Shankara Bhagavad-pada. He was knowledgeable, he had Atmajnanam, but he was also wise. He was wise enough to, because he understood the social responsibility. He understood what nation required at that point of time. He united the entire nation. So that goes on to show that merely remaining knowledgeable is not going to cut the chase. You have to be always considerate about the society you live in. We can't say that I will live in the society, I will fetch all the benefits from the society, but I'm not going to contribute anything to the society. That is wrong. That is wrong on various levels. If I am being a part of a certain community, then I need to ask this question. Nobody needs to teach us this. We need to ask this question, what is my contribution into this? You see, this is how friendships are forged, or this is how colleagues usually take things forward in an office. Okay, if they all want to go to a certain place, go to a picnic, for example, on the weekend, what are their plans? How do they begin? First, they will decide where they want to go, and immediately there will be a small pool of money where everybody contributes. Each and every person has to contribute. It's not just in the monetary way, but also in terms of our knowledge, we have to be contributing. That's the reason why we always need to be samajonmukhata. If I have to say it in Sanskrita, that samajonmukhata should be there. Otherwise, we will lose the ability to live in a society. We do not belong to the society if I just say that I do not want to do it. See, even the likes of great sannyasis, the Mahapurushas, they do their bit for society. And they conduct themselves in a certain way to set an example to the society, and they keep guiding the society at all times. They follow the social norms. They don't break the social norms. So that is wisdom. Wisdom is always after knowledge. When we are knowledgeable, and if we are not wise enough, our knowledge means nothing. You have to be wise even if you are not knowledgeable. I mean, knowledgeable in the sense, in terms of information. If you lack certain information, it is absolutely fine. But if you lack wisdom, it is never going to be sufficient. And people sometimes also confuse between smartness and wisdom. Smartness is different. Smartness can only take you to a certain level, but it won't last long with you. But wisdom will always last longer with us, because wisdom connects us. Wisdom keeps us grounded. It makes us humane. So we should never miss that.
Yeah.
If a young woman Guruji, wants to live her life according to Dharma, what is the main principles that she should never compromise on, regardless of the changing times and circumstances?
You take the inspiration from the great female characters that we have in our literature. The greatest idol, see, the problem comes, it's not just a gender-based problem. It's common for all, for both genders, not all, both genders, okay? Common for both male and female is the lack of role model. As a female, growing up, who should be the role model? We have plenty of such fantastic characters. Take the example of Sita. Now, she went through such hardships, and she never compromised on anything. And there were so many things that were thrown at us. In a figurative sense, so many things were thrown at us, and none of those things mattered to her because of her conviction in her dharma. So it all comes down to that point, that how much convinced am I about, as a female, how much convinced one should be about their dharma. This is what my upbringing is. Everywhere you go throughout Ramayana, everywhere Sita says, this is how I have been brought up. This is what my parents have taught me back in my home. Therefore, she conducts herself without forgetting what she has been taught. And there is no lack of teaching that is happening at homes. People do bring up their children with utmost care, and they do give all the necessary things for a female. But the problem arises when there are external challenges that come. Okay, there is bullying that happens in a different way amongst the female crowd. It is not from the opposite gender. It usually happens from the same gender. So that is where the problem lies. The problem is when they start challenging that you are not an outspoken person, you are not outgoing person, you do not party, you do not come out, you do not have a boyfriend. So all these kind of criteria that the world puts a pressure, it comes from the same fraternity, and that kind of puts an immense pressure on a female. This is the situation. But how to overcome this is, more and more pressure they can take up, and they can strengthen their ground if they can put their feet down and say that this is the line and this is my limit, and I'm not going to cross this limit for anything. So that conviction, that sort of strong conviction, is what makes anybody survive throughout. Sita could have easily said yes, it was impossible, it was never done before. Who had crossed ocean before? Nobody had crossed an ocean. So it was impossible, and she had not had any interactions with anybody from Rama's side for 10 months. 10 months is a long time, and she could have easily said yes to every single offer that Ravana made, but she did not, because of that tapasya, because of that conviction that she had in her dharma. So as a female, not just as a female, male or female, doesn't matter, the more and more conviction we have about our swadharma, what are my basic responsibilities as a human being. So it starts from basic responsibilities of a human being, that is samanya dharma, and then what is my ashrama, what is my varna. Depending upon my varna and ashrama, there are certain varnashrama dharmas. You get that clarity from the shastras, from the gurus, about what are your varnashrama dharma, because it is person specific, it is specific to certain ages. So depending upon that, you follow very strictly what are your norms. That will keep us safeguarded.
Thank you so much.
Guru Garu, with that, I have a follow-up question from your explanation to the previous question. So in this contemporary world, if a woman wants to excel or remain spiritually grounded while excelling in this highly competitive world, how can she do so?
She can. Detachment. So she needs to be detached, and more, and not just a she, anybody for that matter of fact. If we get too much attached to the outcomes of every action, it usually demands a kind of quick response from our side to every situation. We don't we don't respond in a natural way. We kind of respond in an impulsive way to every situation that is presented to us. That is mainly because we tend to get carried away, because we are so much focused, we are so much attached to the outcome. It may appear to us like I'm focused on the job. We are never focused on the job, honestly speaking. We are focused on the outcome of the job. And focused is also a wrong word here. We are not focused on either the job nor the outcome. We are actually already married to the outcome. I am sure that I want this outcome, right? Because I am so much attached to the outcome, it creates that attachment so strongly. We are so deeply attached to the outcome that any small move that doesn't go our way, it kind of disrupts our plan, and it creates a lot of pressure, and we break down. So detachment is the best way to go forward. And you can, detachment is a cornerstone of spirituality. You can read, talk, do things on spirituality. Ultimately, it will all boil down to abhyasa and vairagya. as Sri Krishna has put down in Bhagavad Gita. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. It all comes down to the control of mind. How much are we in control of our mind? And mind can be controlled only with detachment and practice. So the detachment towards outcomes should be practiced. That is the way that we will remain grounded, and you can continue excelling in the world as well. At the same time, you will also be spiritually grounded.
That was really insightful, Guru Garu.
In this modern era of artificial intelligence, if artificial intelligence can answer any question, any factual question, then what should human beings focus on learning?
Fantastic. See, irrespective of whether AI excels or not, the sole goal for human beings or human life should be Atmajnanam. Without mincing the words, I'm just mentioning it. The core idea of Atmajnanam should not desert us. Whether AI excels or not, it doesn't matter. But AI can never bring us to Atmajnanam, because there has been so much of discussions that have happened previously in our Shastras, when they said that karma also cannot fetch you Atmajnanam or moksha, then artificial intelligence is far, far away. So what we should never forget focusing upon, even when the AI is growing, is Atmajnanam. What are we supposed to know? Who am I? What am I? What is my Swarupam? That is the ultimate thing that we must be focusing on. That is a question, a fundamental question that we must ask not only when crisis hits us. That what am I doing with my life? What is the purpose of my life? Is not the question that we must ask only when a crisis hits us. We must ask that question every single day, and we must do something about it to know oneself. And if we keep doing that, I think none of the growth of AI is ever going to hurt us, because it is not in alignment with this thing. AI is meant for bettering the external world, but we don't live in the external world alone. That idea has to be perfectly implanted in our minds, that we have something called as an inward life, an inward journey, an inner life as well. It's not just only about the outward life. So once we stop assuming that life means outward, so it's like every time there is a question, what do? We Google it. Nowadays we chat GPT it, that's all. So basically that idea has to shift, that idea has to change. For everything we must stop looking outside, we have to stop looking within ourselves, because all that we need is that bliss, that contentment, that shanti, that peace. Everything is within ourselves, and we need to start focusing on that. And AI cannot reach there. AI can only be, because it is artificial, it can only reach to an extent. But human intelligence, or the worth of being a human, always refers us or always leads us towards realizing who we truly are. So we must never forget that.
Okay. With that, I want to ask this, Guruji. What is the difference between actually knowing the truth intellectually and living the truth?
In between the knowing the truth and living the truth lies the answer: being the truth. Okay. To know is to be. That's all. That is the statement. Because we always think that to know means to have this, three different entities. To know always involves things like, there is a person who is the knower, there is a thing that needs to be known, and there is a process called as knowing. So all these three entities must cease to exist. Then what is the idea of knowledge then? Knowledge is satta, knowledge is to be. So that's why I said to know is to be. So we have not experienced that. So that's why we think that to know and to live are two different things. It is not. So if we know, it means we are that. If we are that, it's already living, isn't it? So because there is not much difference between bhavati and satta or vidyate. They are both one and the same. So to be is to live, isn't it? To be is to live, to know is to be. So you got the answer. To know is to be is to live.
That was truly thought-provoking.
So one thing is that Indian tradition emphasizes on reflections. So we see that nowadays this reflection or self-reflection has become very rare. Why is that so? So Indian tradition emphasizes on reflection. So we see that nowadays that has become very rare for people to reflect, self-reflect on themselves.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is there?
That is because we are not concerned about the fear is gone. This is the major factor, that fear is gone. Once upon a time, I'll give you a small an idea. I don't know if the current generation can relate to this or not. There used to be a time when anybody in their locality, in their area, they were always afraid to do certain adventurous things in their locality. Do you know what was the reason? The reason was they always felt that everybody knows me in this locality. And everybody had this idea and everybody had this opportunity to correct them. It was not like because I am so and so's son, only my parents have the right to correct me. The entire locality, the entire community had the right to correct me. So that kept me under a certain fear. There was fear of being caught. Therefore, that stopped us to a long extent, to majority of extent, it stopped us from getting ourselves into bad things. Now what has happened is that societal fear is removed. With societal fear removed, that one layer of fear is gone. The family fear is also gone, because of all the rules and regulations, and people have become quite weakened. The lack of fear, and we do not fear the society, we do not fear parents, we do not fear the divine anymore. So earlier, at least, all these three layers of fear used to exist. I was scared of my neighborhood because they will find me and they will punish me. I was scared of my parents, I was scared of my teachers, I was scared of Bhagavan. Now, you remove fear from all these accounts, what are we afraid of? So that removal of fear has caused us lack of reflection, because I don't feel like I am obliged to reflect upon the mistakes that I have committed, because I feel that I am not obliged to answer anybody, I am not answerable, I am not liable to anything. That lack of responsibility, that accountability, the lack of accountability is causing us dearly. You bring back that fear of God. It was a very small thing. It's a very simple thing that used to happen in childhood. I'm sure, I don't know if you all can recall that or not. If a child ever spoke a lie in front of their parents, what would parents or grandparents usually tell that child? Don't lie, there will be some creatures in your tongue. Isn't it? Of course, in various regions, it will be in a different version, but the idea remained the same. We all know that that is not true. If you lie, nothing is going to happen to your tongue. That layer of fear is removed. But what did that kind of narrative, what did that kind of upbringing do to us? It always helped us to reflect upon ourselves that even if there is a chance to lie, I won't lie, because that layer of fear protected us. Fear is a good thing. It protects us from getting into adharma. Now you remove that fear, we are not accountable anymore. That's why it has become rare, as you rightly pointed out. Reflection has become rare because we feel that we are not answerable to anybody. Why should I answer to anybody? No, we should bring back that fear. Be afraid of God. Be afraid of Bhagavan. Be afraid of Punya and Papa. Be afraid of your parents. Be afraid of society. Because ultimately we are answerable. We are accountable to Dharma. Okay, so nobody can escape Dharma. Nobody can escape our own good deeds and bad deeds. So at least that will make us more accountable. If I am accountable, I will always reflect. If my work, and how do you count accountability in profession? You do not submit. Imagine you are the data expert and your data determines the complete outcome of a company. Will you not feel yourself accountable? Because that is what professionalism is. So before you submit or before you send that enter button, before you press on that enter button and send that email, you will ensure that have I done everything correctly? The due diligence. The due diligence comes because there is accountability. Here we are not accountable. We do not do the due diligence because we are not afraid. There is a fear of losing my job, losing reputation, black remark. You will be blacklisted. see that fear, the list of fear is there. That's why I'm more accountable to my job. We have to bring back that fear factor into our life, that if I do wrong, there is definitely going to be repercussions of the wrongdoings that I do. Once we have that concept concretized in our head, then we will be fine. Then we will start reflecting. Each and every act we do, even before we open our mouth and speak a word, we will reflect upon the words that we want to speak, whether it will hurt them or not, whether it is necessary or not. All these questions will come only when we have that layer of fear. Bring back fear. Okay.
So this actually reminds me of one of Sanidhanamar's discourses, where he had pointed out that every person at the end of the day should contemplate and reflect on the list of things that they have done, and also, was it correct of me to do this? Was it a right thing to do? Was it wrong? Or how should I change myself? So I think that component is what we need to inculcate in the younger generation. And so with that, one question is that if there was one question that every young person should reflect on, should contemplate on, not for just a day, but for years together, for his lifetime, what would that question be?
Whether am I following my swadharma or not? That dharma charanam is the ultimate thing that will keep us grounded. All that matters at the end of the day, see, our family will remain, will desert us one day, or we will desert them, or they will desert us. One or the other way will happen. Friends, the same thing. The one thing that never deserts us in our life is dharma. So I would rather put my money in dharma. That which is going to stay with you for long is where you should always invest, isn't it? It's common sense. So dharma is one thing that will never desert us. Therefore, the dharma is the true friend of all beings. So I would rather stand besides dharma rather than any other thing. So one thing that everybody should reflect on a daily basis is, did I do my dharma properly today or not? If I have not done, how do I correct myself? How do I reapply myself into the same thing properly? That is one thing that we must definitely contemplate on a daily basis. Thank you. Thank you.
Guru Garu, we are truly and deeply grateful for your invaluable time and the profound wisdom that you have shared with us today. We thank you from bottom of our hearts for coming and spending time with us, sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
With this, we come to the end of this session. For more such videos, stay tuned and follow Aham Brahmaasmi. May the blessings of the Ubhay Jagat Gurus and Sri Sharada Chandramaulishwara Swami stay with all of us. Until next time,
Namashankaraya.